technology, some 30,000 students, limited research. So in that context, the Tamar Science Park was set up in 1998, and to date it's developed, 15,500 square meters, 150,000 square feet, developed over that period, 62 tenants, employing 820 people. You'd say, in terms of many of your parks, a very modest park, but not untypical of the sorts of park developments that have taken place in the UK and Europe. The evaluation was to assess both the direct impact, the science parks, and also the indirect impact. And of the $22 million invested, the return on land and property was seen as good, high additionality, because of the lack of property investment by the private sector. There's a gap in property provision, but in fact the science park's been constrained by lack of funds for additional premises. Not untypical of a rural area. In terms of economic impact, since 1998, two measures were looked at. First, jobs, and secondly, well, three elements, new firms, and the important figure, gross value added, and that's getting at the point that Mr. Atkinson was making, and I entirely agree, looking at the quality of jobs. It's not just the number, but what's the earning capacity. You'll see there that gross jobs created was 249, and yet there are 820 jobs on the science park. Why the difference? A high percentage of firms relocated from other parts of the catchment area, so there was no job gain. So what we're looking at is the number of jobs that where there was growth on the science park during the period of their development. Moving from gross to net, a really difficult issue. What proportion of those jobs would have happened anyway, even if they had not been on the science park? And that's the tough one to assess. And it's an important one, because that's where we get the value added of the science park and distinguishes good performing and less good performing science parks. So additionality displacement, the multiplier effect, is critical, and in this case the park was benchmarked with Warwick Science Park at the same stage of its development. It wasn't benchmarked against it now, it was taken at the 11-year period, and that gave some positive results. The value of services to occupants was assessed by a survey, and a key conclusion, and it's a major conclusion, is that Science Park itself is really too small at this stage to generate the necessary surplus funds to cover the cost of an active business support program. If we look at the indirect effects, which are rather more positive and substantial. First of all, this area is now becoming accepted as an emerging location for knowledge economy businesses in the region. The Science Park has been a partner, is a partner and a champion for innovation in the local area. Before it wasn't a champion. It's the lead organisation providing support to business-based firms in technology areas, and it's, I think, contributed to the university's commercialisation strategy. Importantly, it helped to secure an investment from the establishment of a medical school on the park, and as has been alluded earlier with the paper about attracting good investment, it is playing that role too. What have been the benefits? I think most important, it's provided independent evidence to the stakeholders, and in this case the government funding bodies, on the role and value of that science park. It lifted the profile of Science Park in terms of the funding agencies, and they are now more aware than they were of the benefit of providing strategic funding for that Science Park to grow. Importantly, it's provided local partners with independent feedback, and it's encouraged the Science Park board and management to address key strategic issues. The Science Park, I should say, is not untypical of many science parks that I've seen. Has it reached its its mid-year crisis, one could say. It's been going 11 years. Where's it going to next? Can it actually draw in and go and move to the next stage and move to a third-generation science park? And that, in a sense, was the challenge that the board management have had to focus on.
Yeah.
And a key outcome is the identification of data that needs to be collected on a regular basis to enable the board management to monitor its performance on a regular basis. So I leave the question to the floor: why is it that science parks and the partners are somewhat reluctant to commission impact studies? Some key issues that arise. First of all, who needs impact studies? Crucially, boards and management. The public body is putting in money. Tenants actually need to see where the benefits of the park lie. Private sector investors, key partners such as the universities, and I would suggest to the associations of science parks, that if we're going to keep the brand alive, we're going to regenerate it, we've got to have performing science parks. Critically, when to carry out the evaluation. If you do it too early, you can't see it takes time to mature. If you do it too late, you've lost the data. And the logic we're suggesting is it needs to be on a rolling program, probably about between 5 and 10-year intervals, but it needs to be done. Clearly defined objectives are needed, and performance targets is set. Agreed performance indicators, as we heard earlier. If we're going to be able to benchmark with other science parks, we need comparable data. And that's crucial. If we're going to have comparable data, we've got to have ongoing data capture, we need a CRM system, and we need much clearer definitions of this data. And that is fundamental if we're going to actually move this whole subject forward. If we can't get comparability, all we're going to get is a range of studies which don't match with each other very well. The design of survey was important, and estimating additionality is a critical and difficult task. So where do we go from here? We're suggesting that IASP, one or more of the national science associations, needs to take the lead. First of all, to secure agreement on the need for a consistent approach to impact assessment. Build up a common set of metrics for evaluation, develop a best practice guide, and I would ask, build up a reference library for these impact studies. Suggesting that the next step is to set up a small working group, or more than one working group of practitioners, to develop a common approach and pilot it.